This is Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 48.
If you have people underneath you and your side hustle is overtaking your responsibilities as a leader, like, check yourself, because it's not all about money. It really isn't.
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. Thanks so much for tuning in to episode 48 of the podcast. I'm super grateful for you guys to be here, and I am excited to give this episode to you with Tyler Goble. Tyler was a big football player in high school and really just wanted to find a way to continue playing football outside of high school. He ultimately, after writing all D1 colleges around the country, found himself playing for the Naval Academy, where he didn't actually necessarily want to be in the military, but found it would be the best opportunity for him to play football. And from there, continued to find surprises that offered opportunities within the military and beyond. And 10 years later, he's still in the Marine Corps as an officer and working on a graduate program that the Marine Corps is funding. But also within this time, he's working on a real estate business. And he's using his real estate business to fund the nonprofit Unbound Now in order to fight human trafficking around the world. So he's got a super inspirational story, obviously a very bright guy. And I think he's got a lot of information and wisdom that we can all learn from. So I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Good afternoon, Tyler. How you doing?
Good, Jason. How are you, man?
I'm good, man. I'm stoked to have you on. I know we connected a number of weeks back before I had my baby, and we kind of put things on hold. And so
I figured we need to have a call when you were on the way to the hospital or on the way home or something like that. So
yeah, it was going to be
sense to postpone.
Yeah. No, yep. I appreciate the flexibility there. But I'm excited to hear your story. I heard you on Barry's real estate podcast and was particularly attracted based on your Naval Academy story, but also your involvement with the nonprofit, in order to fight human trafficking. And that's something that's kind of like near and dear to my heart and that I'm kind of building a passion on. So I'm excited to hear your involvement with that and just kind of your story. But I'd love to hear how it began and how you found yourself in the Marine Corps in the first place.
Yeah. So, first of all, I would never have thought that I was going to be in the Marine Corps growing up. That was one of those things. I was absolutely not. And it was actually the real reason I'm in the Marine Corps is because I wanted to play football in college. And so one of those things where I started playing ball when I was 7 years old and always played a lot of sports. And I was dead set on playing D1 college football somewhere. And so any good person in the world just called everybody. So I called every single school. And it's funny, I wish I could still have that spreadsheet, but I made a spreadsheet at every college.
I was going to say,
called every single one of them.
How many is that? 100?
It's 120, I think, at that time. I think there's 130 now.
Wow. Yeah, that's some legwork.
Yeah, I wasn't playing around. So it's one of those things. It was just my dream to play college ball. It really wasn't even my dream to play pro ball. For some reason, it pretty much terminated at college. And so that's what really led me to the Naval Academy. I was kind of getting courted by some schools, a lot of Ivy League schools, a lot of MAC schools like Bowling Green State, Eastern Michigan. And then Navy actually came in there late and went to the Army-Navy game, checked it out, and it was just such a good fit from kind of just a values culture perspective.
Cool.
And so, I went to Navy and I swore that I was just going to put my butt on a boat for 5 years and just float off into the distance and then get out and do whatever. And that's not what happened at all. So,
yeah, I mean, so you thought, you went to the Navy Academy and thought you'd end up in the Navy. Did you even know that you had that option to end up in the Marine Corps? Or
I knew. Yeah, I knew, but I did not think for a second I was going to do that. Because in my mind, I just had the Marine Corps, and I was like, that's not who I am. I don't have anybody in the military in my family except for my uncle. My uncle Tony, he's a Green Beret. But other than him, that's the only guy that had any kind of military service, really. My grandpa served back pre or post Korea, pre Vietnam for a little bit. But other than those two links, there was really no super strong link to the military. So in my mind, I was just going to go there. I was going to be a surface warfare officer, and I was going to sit my butt on a boat and just float around for 5 years and get out and go about my life. But,
so you were willing to like put up with a simple Navy contract just so you could play ball at the Naval Academy?
Yeah, that's how it started. That's definitely what my mindset was going in. It definitely rapidly changed though. Once I got there and once I actually kind of bought in.
I mean, what did you learn through that experience in those 4 years that made you think like, okay, one, I'm not going to do the Navy anymore. I want to be a Marine Corps officer. And two, maybe I'll make this a career. Like what happened? What changed?
Yeah. So, I mean, you are who you hang out with, right? And so on the football team, we really got exposed to a lot of really great Marines, and just like those guys were the people that I would naturally gravitate to. And it kind of makes sense. Like the Marine Corps in reality is like one big football locker room. And so that's what I realized was once football was over for me. I mean, I've been playing since I was 7. And so what is that, like 16 years or something like that of football every year. Wow. And so I knew that when that vacuum left, I was going to need something to fill it from like a camaraderie perspective. Yeah. And when you go to the academy, you get a chance to take part in some summer trainings. And so after your freshman year, you get put on a boat for about a month or 2 weeks, depending on what your training is. And so I did that and I went, oh no, I can't do this. This is going to be miserable.
Yeah.
And so I kind of checked that one off. And then ironically, I was like, well, I can't be a pilot because that's like a 10-year commitment. And ironically, right now I'm like on 10-year orders. And so I'm sure we'll get into that later about what I'm doing currently. But from the beginning, it was like, well, I don't want to fly. That seems like a really long time to just sign up at 22 years old to be 32 when you get out.
Yeah.
Time really flies though, as I'm sure you can attest to that.
It sure does.
But after that surface warfare experience, it was just one of those things where I was like, no, that is not me. And then all the guys that I was really close with on the team, a lot of them went Marine Corps, and the guys that I was like really, really close with, they were all Marine Corps. So cool. It's you are who you hang out with, and that's what my personality just kind of meshed with the Marine Corps more so than the Navy.
Yeah, and it only took a couple of days on a boat for you to realize it wasn't for you.
Yeah.
Exactly. I think also, I mean, football players are usually kind of like the alphas, and so the Marine Corps is typically full of a bunch of alpha dudes also. So, that's
I mean, it's the best service, so that makes sense.
Yeah, no doubt. No bias here though, for sure.
Yeah, none.
So I mean, what was the Naval Academy like? I know a lot of people kind of have it on this, a little bit of a pedestal. I didn't go to the academy, so I don't really know anything other than secondhand experiences. But I mean, did you feel like you gave up maybe like a college experience that most people seek out by going to the Naval Academy, or what was that dynamic like at the academy?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I would say it's just so vastly different than going to a normal school. And not that I went to a normal school and really have anything to compare it to, but I played football at Navy, and then my brother actually played at Bowling Green State University. They're a MAC school.
Okay.
And so both Division I football programs both had a lot of success. The teams I were on, we were actually the winningest class in Navy history, finished ranked in the top 20. My senior year, stuff like that. Like we had a really good run. We were really good. Nice. And my brother also won a MAC championship at Bowling Green. He might have won 2 actually, and did really, really well. But I think when you go to a service academy, and especially when you play sports, you kind of forge a lot deeper relationships than you do elsewhere. And so a lot of it had to do because you didn't have that normal college experience. There's not a lot of college freshmen, unless you're pledging the Pratt, that are doing what you're doing at service academies as a freshman. And so, especially with the football team, really, really got close. Like I was just actually on the phone with a guy that I played ball with right before we got on this call. And so it's like I talk to those guys every day. And my brother's 3 years older than me, and he still has good relationships with those guys, but I don't think there's that depth just because of the shared experience and the shared service that comes along with going to a service academy. So, you definitely don't have the normal college experience. And I think if you went to West Point, you probably would be even like more screwed just because they're like up in the middle of nowhere. But at least at Navy, you have Annapolis, so you have somewhat of a normal like college town. But once you're like a sophomore, junior, senior, you're able to kind of be somewhat normal, but for the most part, yeah, it's vastly different than in your normal college.
Was there, I mean, much of a financial incentive to go to the academy rather than a traditional school? Like if you went to a different D1, like a normal traditional college, did you expect a full ride, or were you weighing those options from a financial point too?
No, I had two other full rides. So I had a full ride to Bowling Green State and then Eastern Michigan.
Okay.
And I mean, Bowling Green was really close because I mean, my brother was the captain there, had a really good relationship with that coaching staff. But for me, it was one of those things, thinking long term. The academy education as well as the opportunity to serve afterwards and truly kind of be a coach in reality, because that's a lot of times what officers are, is you're a glorified coach in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And so all my buddies growing up, and even my buddies at the academy, whenever you ask them what their dream job is, they're like, man, I just want to coach high school football and retire and just do that. And the Marine Corps kind of like that, especially the infantry. It's kind of like being a football coach.
Yeah.
And that's how I tried to kind of approach my leadership style. It's like, if I was on a football team, like, what are my machine gunners doing? Like, they're my linebackers, or they're my like D tackles, mortarmen. They're usually a little weirder, so they're probably like DBs. But yeah, not to run the analogy into the ground, but that's where I kind of landed with that.
Cool. So I mean, it sounds like you didn't even have something specific you wanted out of the military. I mean, you just wanted to play football, and that was kind of like like tunnel vision almost.
That's what pulled me in. Yeah, it was definitely a side thing at first, but the academy and I think the football team does a really good job of really kind of molding your mindset once you realize that you're in. And so at the academies, you have it's called a 2 for 7. And so you sign on for an additional 7 years where you're going to serve 2 more years of school, and then you have a 5-year minimum commitment. And kind of once you sign that sheet of paper heading into your junior year, you kind of feel some electricity leave your body, and you're like, oh, that's
commitment. Yeah.
And here it is. And like the door clamps shut, and they're like, okay, you can't leave now. So, once that happens, you kind of really realize, and you grow up too. I mean, you're 18 years old. People give Lance Corporals a hard time all the time about dumb decisions they make, but I hate to break it to all the academy grads, but you were 18 at one point too, and you were making some really dumb decisions up in Bancroft Hall in Annapolis and whatnot. So, you got to realize that that's the same level of like mental development. You're still the 18-year-old kid, like, don't really know what you want in life, trying to figure yourself out. And so by the time you graduate, usually for the most part, the academy's done a pretty good job of committing you to actually wanting to serve for the right reasons.
Cool. Awesome. So where has that led you? I mean, you said 10 years in now, kind of like not what you expected, but I mean, like what's it led you to, and what are you doing?
Yeah, so I mean, my path to the Marine Corps is a pretty standard one when it comes to the infantry. So Marine Corps officers, when you commission, you go to the basic school. That's a 6-month course. And then fortunate enough to get selected to be an infantry officer. So I went to infantry officer course, which is another 3-month course in Quantico. And then from there, you ship off your first unit to be a platoon commander, something along those lines. And so I did my first tour in 3-6, 3rd Battalion, 6th Marines, down in Camp Lejeune. Served as the weapons platoon commander, and then went to a weapons company as the XO over there. And so that got me to about 4 years. And then I got ordered out here to NPS, Naval Postgraduate School. And so it's funny, all the other services send people to this school to get a master's degree. But I'm pretty sure the Marine Corps is the only one that tells you which one you're getting. And so all the other people are like, the Navy up in meet and greets for your first class. They're like, hey, why are you here? And you got a Navy guy's like, well, I really love statistics and I love to do that stuff. And then the Marines are all in the room just going, they told me I had to come here or they're going to kick me out. So I'm here.
No kidding.
Yeah.
I mean, is it a promotion requirement?
It's not. You do some like professional military education here. So you like get qualified for all that stuff while you're at NPS. But it's basically what they're trying to do is grab a bunch of different officer MOSs and put them all and get a master's degree in something that the Marine Corps needs. And so my master's degree is operations research, which is like a data analysis, statistics driven master's degree, which which ironically is doing a ton of coding. So I'm learning how to code,
Wow.
and
Wow.
it's something I, again, never in a million years thought I would be coding.
Yeah.
Like I'm a inside linebacker, infantry officer, and here I am like hunting, pecking hundreds of lines of code.
Ugh.
But that's what I'm doing right now. So that's what my set of orders is at the Naval Postgraduate School. And so that's a 2-year program. And then after that, I'll owe 4 years, which will bring me up to that 10-year mark.
Okay. So there is a commitment to follow on this graduate program.
Correct. Yep. Gotcha. 4 years. So every year you owe 2.
Gotcha. Yeah. I was going to say, that sounds like a pretty good deal. Like they just send you to grad school and that's it. So that makes more sense. They wouldn't give it to you for free. I'm curious how you feel about that contrast between coding and, infantry football life. I mean, like coding's no joke if you're used to, the outdoors and being active and sitting in front of a computer. Coding sounds pretty rough.
It is completely different. What's interesting is that the coding aspect is actually kind of turning into one of my strengths, ironically, which is, again, never in a million years. It's funny what God does and puts in your life and like makes you like successful at. Yeah. Because coding is actually something I think I kind of enjoy in a weird, strange way. And so another aspect, I know you heard me on Barry's podcast for real estate investing.
Yeah.
And so we started a real estate investing company, my wife and I, out here, and I'm actually writing code right now that's analyzing the market in the United States and narrowing down on certain like key demographics inside of markets that makes sense. And it's one of the ways that I mitigate risk in our company is by being able to pull down these million row spreadsheets and open source data and whatnot and kind of synthesize it so that we can make better investment decisions.
Very cool, man. There's a lot to unpack with that. One, I want to bring to the our attention, like you said yes to these opportunities and not really knowing where it took you would take you, but it sounds like it's found you found some like good opportunities and good highlights that you didn't expect to find within yourself. Like most people would kind of just turn down an opportunity because they hear that might be a lot of work or they might not think they're going to be interested in it. But you've been surprised at where these things have led you.
No, absolutely. And it's, I'm a Christian guy too. So like at the end of the day, all these decisions, like sometimes I'm a little flippant with how I say it, but my wife and I, we really pray about everything that we do. And so it's been one of those things where we felt like, what, God's calling us to do this. And so we pressed ourselves into it. And I'm a big believer in if your gut's telling you it's a right thing to do, and you've prayed on it, and you like seeked out counsel for what you're doing, and it still feels right, then pull the trigger and do it 100 miles an hour. So that's what we're doing right now. It's just my 100 miles an hour is with a keyboard and not an M4 or a radio.
Yeah, absolutely. How does that balance work? Running your own real estate company and being in grad school and Marine Corps full time.
Yeah, that's a super interesting question. I'm glad you asked that, because I think right now, like the military culture and like all these different platforms and marketing people that are like, you need to have a side hustle. Like you need to do this. Like you need to be waking up at 4 a.m. to do X, Y, Z. Yeah. Like you should be making money in Bitcoin right now and screw everything else. Like your side hustle will become your main hustle. Yeah. But there's a big tension there if you're active duty and you're doing stuff like that. Because at the end of the day, like when you have people that you're in charge of, like I don't care if you're a Lance Corporal and you're in charge of a buddy pair, or if you're a Lieutenant Colonel, you have a battalion, right? You have an obligation to be very good at what you're doing in that job.
Yeah.
And so for me, real estate is one of those things that originally was kind of like a hobby of mine. It was something that I just really enjoyed doing. And when I moved down to Camp Lejeune on my first set of orders, I bought a house and I did the classic Lance Corporal Lieutenant thing, filled the house with all my buddies. So rented out to 4 of the lieutenants.
Nice.
And bunch of grunts just living in the house and trying not to burn the place down. And like, I liked doing that. It was fun. And then when I got married, my wife and I, we bought another house. And that one had gotten torched by the hurricane. I don't know if you were on the East Coast at any point during that. It was like 3 or 4 years ago, maybe.
I came back on the East Coast in 2017. So
yeah, that would have been pretty close to when that hurricane came through, or maybe 2018 was when the hurricane happened. But bottom line is this hurricane ripped the roof off this house, like totally trashed it. And so that was a perfect house for me to buy, obviously. And long story short, I actually bought that one when I was on deployment in Japan. Had to do like a sign language game with the FedEx driver to get my closing docs to North Carolina from mainland Japan. Wow. But that's too long of a story anyways with what we're talking about. And so we bought that house and we renovated it. And as soon as I finished the renovations, that's when me and my wife got married. She moved into it. We lived in it for about 8 months. And then we actually sold off the portfolio in North Carolina when we came out here to Monterey. And I kind of mentioned it earlier, like I'm a Christian guy. And so I don't know if you have a faith background, but tithing is something that I do. And tithing for your listeners is when you give 10% of your income to church or to a nonprofit or to a worthy cause. And so with real estate, it's not normal income for us. It's kind of something that happens outside of my like W-2 Marine Corps job. Yeah. And so when we sold that house, we made about 25 grand after cost on it. And so we were happy with it. And my wife and I, we were discussing what should we do for the tithe on this, because it was kind of one of those things. It's not a normal flow of income. Thought it would be cool to be able to give away to something that meant a little bit more than just our normal tithe for the church. And my mother-in-law, she actually founded this anti-human trafficking nonprofit called Unbound Now. And what they do is they train, they equip, they educate, and they save people out of human trafficking, like sex slavery, labor trafficking, like you name it, they're involved in it. And so we gave it to them. And I had this kind of preconceived notion that in order for me to make a difference in any sort of charity, I had to be Bill Gates or I had to be like Elon Musk. Yeah. And I had to give away like $50 million, and then that would maybe make a dent in human trafficking. And so when we gave that money, it ended up being about $3,000. We were able to give $2,500, $3,000. I got to go back and look at my taxes. I actually just filed those. But we gave that money, and she called me and she said, Tyler, like, thank you guys so much. That was really nice. What you don't realize is that with us, for $5,000, we're able to pay somebody 365 days a year who lives in Mongolia, that sits on that border between China and Mongolia, and just snatches people out of slavery. Like snatches people are being sold at bus stations, train stations, truck stops, and literally physically grabbing these people and saving their lives. Wow. And it's like, when you hear that, it's like, holy cow, that's powerful.
$5,000 for 1 year. That's all.
One whole year. That's it.
Wow.
With Unbound specifically, like that's their overhead for that country. And it's like $30,000 for their whole Mongolia budget. Unreal. And so,
do they have numbers? I mean, I'd be so curious, like for that $5,000 for that one person to be there, how many, trafficking victims are saved?
They have it on their website. They've got some like information about how many people they were able to help that year. Yeah. But no, that's just, and even if it was one person, like for $5,000, like, are you kidding me? Like, just don't wait another like month to buy your Tesla. You know what I mean? Like, it's insane. Like when you think about that. And I think I really am a nerd at heart. Don't tell like my teammates back at Navy, but like I love spreadsheets. And so when she told me that, I was like, oh my gosh, like for $5,000, we can make an impact like that. Like, what if we just, instead of using real estate as our exit strategy from the Marine Corps, we pushed our chips in and we said, you know what, we're going to make a difference now, and we're going to do it now. And I'm kind of perfectly situated right now to be able to do something like this, and bringing it all the way back to like the military active duty side hustle conversation, right? I don't have anybody that's underneath me. I don't have any Marines. All I have is myself. And all I've got to do is pass these classes, learn what the Marine Corps needs me to learn. And really, I think God brought this into our lives at this time because I had so much more headspace to think about this stuff. And so that's what we've done is we put our chips in, we pushed them all in, and we launched a real estate investing company. and we're partnered with Unbound Now. And so what we do is we, out of our profits for each deal that we do, we're giving away a minimum of 10% of the earnings, wow, with our end goal being able to build a company that's giving away $1 million a year in active income and 100,000 in passive. And unreal. So, yeah, we're locked and loaded, and we're pursuing it as aggressively as we can. And we really opened the doors to offering on stuff in like January. And so far, we have one active deal right now that I can talk about because it's a 506c offering and it's for accredited investors only. And
I was going to say, yeah, are there, I mean, because you're partnered with Unbound Now, are there opportunities for other people to like basically give to your business, which then, supports Unbound Now?
Yeah. I mean, the people that I work with, my investor base, I've really been pretty deliberate about who I'll work with. And it's one of those things where my investors are all very like-minded, and they're not people that are diametrically opposed to charity. I don't make them give any of their earnings to charity, but I'm very abundantly clear that that's why we're doing what we're doing. Gotcha. And I mean, I had this conversation down to like the insurance agent that I'm having on a property. It's like everyone I talk to, like my main goal behind this company, my wife's main goal behind this company is that we're able to support the fight against human trafficking. One, by providing a ton of free marketing, like getting on podcasts like this with you, Jason, is huge for us. Yeah. Because it just lets us kind of tell the story a little bit in a medium that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. And then also obviously financially from the actual deals. But yeah, it's illegal to like talk about other investments other than a 506c type offering because of the SEC regulations. Gotcha. So for people to invest with me, they have to actually know me. And they have to have a personal relationship, and we have to kind of have that documented. Yeah. But this specific deal that we actually have right now, like another example of God just opening some crazy doors. It's like a 384 unit apartment complex in Daytona, Florida. Wow. And we're raising $6 million right now for it. And so the stipulation is you have to be an accredited investor in order to get in on the deal. And so for those listening, because I just read like the definition of an accredited investor. Not that we're like getting super into real estate or investing, but just because you said that twice now. Explain what an accredited investor is. Yeah, so an accredited investor is if you're single filing jointly, it's based on your taxes. Mm-hmm. If you're single filing just as yourself, you need to be able to make $200,000 a year for the past 2 years and have a reasonable expectation that income is going to continue. Or you have to have $1 million net worth. Then if you're married filing jointly, that income restriction is actually $300,000. And again, you need to have it documented over the past 2 years with a reasonable expectation it's going to continue. And then, or you can have $1 million net worth. And so that's your like basic deadline or basic requirements for being accredited. Yeah. Okay. Do you have to be an accredited investor to run that business? Like, no. Interesting. Yeah. So the way that those kinds of like, not get too technical with it, but when you're doing a deal like that, you have people that are called general partners, and they're the ones who are running the deal. And so you can self-accreditate a lot of times inside of the deal by being a general partner. Gotcha. Yeah, I don't want to give anybody the impression that Marine Corps officers are getting paid that well, No, I mean, yeah. Definitely not bad either. But awesome, man. Well, so because you're in grad school right now, like you said, you don't have anybody under you, so you're able to, put more focus towards that. Do you feel like you have kind of a clock to how much time you can actually put in this effort? Because once you get sent back to, the fleet Marine Force, like once you have people under you, are you worried about that dynamic? Yeah, there's people that do it. And I think there's people that do it the right way, and there's people that do it the wrong way. And I think it's really ironic. I think I've probably grown more as a leader from launching this business. That's really not true. I've grown just as much as a leader by launching this business than I did playing football and leading Marines as a platoon commander in a company XO. Just because you have something that you really care about, right? Yeah. And you're really having to figure out all these different complex problems. Yeah. Problem solve through some things. But then, real estate is a people business. Like I've got an agent that I'm working with. I've got partners that I'm working with. I've got contractors that I'm working with. I've got investors that I'm working with. And so at the end of the day, it's been a really, really great experience to do what we're doing, because you just get so much people. It's all people business. And that's what the Marine Corps is too. It's the infantry is all about taking care of your dudes. And so at the end of the day, I think I've learned a lot about really being a leader by launching a business. That if I were to go back to the fleet and be a company commander, I think it would really be something to where I think I would bring a different kind of flavor to a company, because I've had like a business background where there's a lot of creative solutions out there. And I think the Marine Corps, we preach maneuver warfare, and we preach the creativity behind everything we do. But sometimes we fall short of that. And so I think maybe a way that the Marine Corps could really improve, and I think we're trying to, we've released MCDP 7 learning. And so you can tell that there's somebody in like headquarters Marine Corps that's like, I want to be better at innovating. But launching a business, man, we've been incredibly innovative, I think, in how we've been going about it. And so,
that's awesome.
But to answer your question, I do feel like there's a timeline on it. But the way we're structuring ourselves is to be the big red button people, where after 2 years of labor, we've developed partnerships with people that all we are doing is pressing the big red button, and they're able to take it from there. Yeah, but it's a fine line when you have people under you. That's really what I would, if people could take away something, it would be if you have people underneath you and your side hustle is overtaking your responsibilities as a leader, like, protect yourself, because it's not all about money. It really isn't.
Yeah.
And there's ways to make more money and provide for your family that also aren't at the detriment of the people that you're leading. So it's like you're leaving at 3:00 every day because you're going to work for 6 hours on your side hustle, and you've got your lance corporals are just sitting in the office like doing God knows what, and you're jacked up. It's wrong. And so.
So I'm curious if you're in your experience in the Marine Corps, because I know like now that I'm kind of online and trying to do this content creation stuff, it seems like everybody is, has a hustle. Everybody's doing something online or in real estate or in business in some capacity. But then kind of like once I step off that and like step back into the real world, it's like, well, not really. Nobody's doing anything. And so I'm curious in your experience and like, leading your guys in the infantry, like, are many of your guys trying to do side hustles that you actually worry about that and worry about where their focus is? Or
I don't think so. At least not in my experience. I think most of the dudes in my platoon, like since I left the unit, some of them are like, I'm friends with them on Facebook and stuff. And so I see more of their personal life than I did when I was in charge of them. And like, there's a couple that had like a fitness, like guru type thing going on and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it's one of those things where I've got no problem with it. I think it's great. What I have a problem with is when people make that above their actual duties and responsibilities of like taking care of your people, because really, I think the root of most problems is when people are selfish. And you just had your kid, right? And we were just talking about how you realize like how selfish you really are. It's one of those things where the less you can think about yourself, the more you can take care of other people. I think the better leader you're going to be. And ironically, I think God's faithful to multiply your work when your intentions are pure, And so that's been my experience. I didn't worry about any of my guys. I worried more about my guys me having to go pick them up from the police station or something sometimes. But I'm kidding. I had a really, really good platoon, really good company over at 3-6.
Awesome. I know a lot of people, I know like when I was 17, I joined like, we want to make a difference. And so like, that's why we joined the Marine Corps, is to focus on something bigger. And, not, depending on what your answer, I don't want to like shine the Marine Corps in a bad light, but do you feel like you're making more of an impact in the Marine Corps or with your business and the impact it has on human trafficking? Like,
I think they're just very different, right? And it's like the human trafficking impact, and we're not doing it. It's Unbound Now that's doing it. Like, we're just trying to be a vessel to help them do the work that they're already doing. And so we're really humbled that they even let us talk about them. But in the Marine Corps, you're making kind of a more one-on-one, like very direct impact on people's lives. Yeah. And I mean, hopefully my guys could tell that I love them, but I really did. And it was one of those things where you you very rarely in life get to interact with like 50 people directly, like every day.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have that in corporate America. Like, I don't know if you keep up with any of your buddies from like wherever your like high school buddies or whoever, but they're hitting it big if they have like a team of 10 people underneath them, you know? And we've got 21-year-olds running around with a squad of 13, you know? And so I think the Marine Corps, the difference, I think maybe our propaganda machine is so strong that you think you're just going to go and take doors down in Syria the entire time we're doing everything.
Yeah.
But the real impact, I think, it's on your fellow Marines around you. Yeah. And so, no, I think you're making a great impact, but it's just very, very different.
I would totally agree with that. That's something that I didn't really, when I was active duty, I didn't recognize that for the unique opportunity that it was, like that direct impact you can have on Marines or soldiers or whatever, that you're immediately working with, like that does not exist outside of the military that I've found, you know, like after some civilian jobs, you know, like every other job outside the military, downtime is not for socializing. It's for like, why do you have downtime? Get back to work kind of thing. And so there's definitely that unique ability to like mentor, lead, and have an impact on those guys and girls around you that I think is unmatched so far that I've seen in my life. But yeah, awesome. What's been the highlight opportunity that you found through the military that you would encourage somebody else to pursue?
So there's a couple. I think the fun one, if we can just like get a little more lighthearted, I feel like we've been pretty like aggressively like deep and philosophical on this podcast so far. But if you ever go to Okinawa, you ever go to Japan, you can get scuba certified for like $300, and like you can do 10 dives for $300, which I don't know if you've ever scuba dived, but that's something I got to do when I was in Japan, and that was awesome. Like $300 for 10 dives, like you cannot beat that. Like all your equipment. So if you go to Okinawa, if you're in Okinawa, I would say go get scuba certified, because that is the cheapest you'll ever get it, and it's a cert you got for life. So
I've never been to Oki, but I've seen pictures, and I'd love to dive there. I got my scuba cert right before leaving for boot camp because it was like a phobia of things like underneath the water, and that's how I figured I'd get over that, you know. But that's awesome, man. That's awesome.
No, that's cool. And then inside the Marine Corps, man, I mean, you got to join the infantry first. I think that's my first plug, shameless plug. And I really enjoyed working on the fire support side of the house. That was something that was super fun for me. I never actually got to do a line platoon. I was always a weapons platoon commander. And for people that don't know, that's like in the Marine Corps, you got your line platoons in your regular rifle company. You have a line platoon, which is just your riflemen. And then you have the meat eaters over in weapons platoon. And so that's your machine gunners, your mortarmen, and rest in peace, assaultmen. I don't know if they're officially 100% gone yet. But my boys over the Oak 351 community, they're hurting. But anyways, because of that job, I got to do a lot of different like airstrike, artillery type training and stuff like that. And so, that was the most fun for me, is doing gun runs with mortars and artillery going off and stuff like that. That was a blast.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, it's a far cry. I feel like people that, I don't know, maybe I'm misspeaking, but like people that kind of join the military or like find themselves in the military for a certain benefit, they usually stay away from like the combat MOSs, you know, because they're there for like the GI Bill or something like that. And so to like, you know, get the best of both worlds, because nobody else is going to pay you to do gun runs anywhere else. And so you might as well take advantage of it while you have the opportunity.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to get away with doing gun runs in the civilian world. So I think Uncle Sam might get on to you. I mean, I'm all about the Second Amendment, but I don't know if anybody's letting you use Harriers in the civilian sector.
Yeah, not quite. They're a little too expensive. That's awesome, man. So, I mean, you've done a couple deployments. What's the best place that the Marine Corps has taken you, and the worst place?
I mean, I actually only did one. So I got 3-6, and they were coming back from the MEU. I don't know if you remember the Syria deployment people talked about, where they burned up all those barrels with the artillery battery over there.
Yeah.
Basically, they like set the world record for shelling rocket.
Wow.
And so 3-6 came back from the MEU after that deployment. And so we actually had to wait for 2 months before they got there. And so I did like a full like 20-month workup for a UDP, so unit deployment program to Japan for 6 months.
Yeah.
And so on that deployment, we got to go to the Philippines for about 2 months.
Cool.
Mainland Japan for about 2 months, and we were on Okinawa for about 2 months. Kind of like bookended it, like first month there and then last month there.
Yeah.
And so the Philippines I thought was really cool, and it was a really neat opportunity for us to kind of train their military. And it was one of those things where they were going down to fight Abu Sayyaf, which is like a branch of ISIS in the Philippines. And so we were like kind of giving them some training up there. And then like you want to talk about like impact with the guys. I think that was something that they thought was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Getting to train the Philippine Marines and really develop cool relationships with them, where it's like they're just like me and you. Like they're just big, goofy machine gunners at heart sometimes. And so they right after we got finished working with them, they went down to Mindanao in the Philippines, which is where there was a lot of fighting going on. So that was kind of a rewarding experience, I think, is getting to train those guys. Back stateside, I think doing ITX was always fun. I did like 3 ITXs during that 20 months somehow. We like kept going back to 29 Palms.
Wow.
And that was always a really cool, because that's where, I mean, all the units that are stationed at 29 Palms, I think they're miserable, but they do get to do some really cool training. So you do pretty much whatever you want out there when it comes to blowing stuff up.
Awesome. I think it's worth noting, anybody that's listening to this that maybe isn't in the military yet, and they think of deployment as like combat deployment. They think of like Iraq or Afghanistan, but you're talking about, your deployment to like, Philippines, Japan area. And yet you got your scuba cert like on deployment, so not every deployment is a combat deployment where you're working 12 on 12 off. Like if you're going on different,
they're few and far between right now too.
Yeah.
Unless you're soft, unless you're special ops.
So yeah, I mean, there's still opportunities even within deployments that, you can take advantage of and leverage, because,
yeah, absolutely. Right before I left 3-6, they actually punched out to go to BSURF, which is like a Black Sea Rotational Force. And so they did a bunch of training in Norway with the Norwegians and cold weather training. And so, yeah, there's a bunch of different deployments nowadays than when things were like hot and heavy in Iraq, Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
the vast majority of them are not Iraq, Afghanistan right now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. To go back to football, I'm just curious for a sec, because I was surprised when I got into the Marine Corps that like the Marine Corps has a football league. Like you can play football, and like, is that something you still pursue within the Marine Corps, or are you hung it up?
Nah, man, I'm washed up. I spent it all on the field back in Navy, so
gotcha.
I've got no illusions of grandeur. Although I've got some buddies who did their time. Paul Quisenberry, he's actually on the practice squad, I think, right now with the Houston Texans, and he bounced around the league a little bit. And so there's some guys that still had the dream, haven't hung the cleats up that I played with. So
yeah, that's awesome.
But not for me. I was like a slow white dude that was just really like a good football player, but severely disadvantaged from an athletic standpoint. So
fair enough. Well, the opportunity still exists if you join active duty Marine Corps. I was amazed, like they have like, they fund these sports leagues, and you can play like, I don't know what the equivalent, division level is, if it is even comparable. I know a lot of people have a lot of fun with those. So
yeah, the Marine wrestling program, I think, is also like very, very good. I know they're sending a guy to the Olympics this year.
I just saw that. Yeah. Impressive. Which is like another thing. Basically go on orders to go to the Olympics and train for the Olympics and all time.
It's almost as good as going to Monterey, California for 2 years and just getting paid to go to school.
Yeah, no kidding. Awesome. Would you recommend anybody to either commission or enlist in the military or Marine Corps specifically?
I mean, when it comes down to it, your job as a enlisted, like I can only really speak on the Marine Corps, but if you're like thinking stereotypical, like I want to be a Marine, you want to enlist. You don't want to be an officer. officers, like my cool days are like, they lasted maybe 10 seconds. Yeah. And then I was pushing paperwork and really it's like once you hit first lieutenant, you're like counting your numbers and you're going, all right, it's almost over. And in the Marine Corps, like especially as an infantry officer, the first 9 months of your time, if you time it up perfectly, is all spent at training. And so they invest a ton of time training Marine lieutenants to be officers. Yeah. And so you burn, of your 4 years of lieutenant time, 9 months of it, in reality, more like a year of it, is burned up learning how to be an officer. And so that leaves you 3 years to actually maybe get a cool deployment or do something like that. Whereas if you're an enlisted guy, you can sign up for your 4 year enlistment and get maybe 2 deployments. They try and get you 2 deployments during that time. Your training pipeline's a lot shorter. Yeah. Then when you re-enlist, you can stay in the fleet. And if that's something that you really want to do, if you're super gung-ho. If you really want to be like a coach, so that's really the best way I would describe it, is as an officer, if you're really like an offensive defensive coordinator, I would say then you should consider being an officer. And so hopefully that answers your question, but it really depends on what you're trying to get. You're not going to be kicking doors down if you're the lieutenant nowadays. Like you're going to be sitting with the radio and you're going to be monitoring patrols. Yeah. And every now and then you go on patrol, but the vast majority of your time is not going to be with the sledgehammer or the shotgun breaching doors and picking names and stuff.
And I think, when you earlier you said how time flies, and like to think that basically 25% of your first contract is in training. It's like, it's so like sectioned out, the contract, that, I mean, it flies by. And so, for people that like worry or excited that like they're going to be join the Marine Corps, then 2 days in, they're going to be deploying and doing cool stuff. There's a long road of work and training to get there. So, let that be known.
Yeah. To put it in perspective, I got to 3.6. I think it was like 15 months into my commitment. So I got there in the fall of 2018, I think, and I commissioned in the spring of 2016.
Awesome. So, right on, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you sharing your story. For those that want to maybe learn more about you or Unbound Now, where can they find more information?
Yeah, find me on LinkedIn. I'm super active on LinkedIn, and all of Unbound's information is always in my posts. And so you can really get a lot of information there. We're on Instagram. The company's name is LTG Investments. So we were like really, really creative, and we just used our initials. And so Lindsay and Tyler Goble Investments. But you can find me on that and just reach out. And my email is Tyler@LTG Investments. And so that's another really good way to get a hold of me. But no, I really appreciate your time, Jason, and giving me a chance to kind of showcase Unbound a little bit, hopefully here, and drum up a little support for them as well. Just talk Marine Corps with you, man. Love talking about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I know every Marine's looking for, a worthy cause, and, human trafficking is undeniably one. So hopefully some people, are piqued, their interest is piqued by this, and reach out.
I'm support. I love that. And I'm an open door. I ain't no big timer. So hit me up and I will respond. I promise. So
sounds great. Awesome. Thanks so much, Tyler.
Yep. Appreciate you, Jason.
Hey guys, thanks for tuning into this episode. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you were inspired by Tyler's message and what he's doing right now to make an impact in the world. If you are interested in contacting Tyler, I will put the links in the description where you can find and contact him. But Unbound Now is an awesome charity to support. And I know that a lot of people in the military, like I said in the podcast, are looking for a worthy cause. And, I think that is one that is worthy of our support. So I hope you guys enjoyed that episode, and I will see you guys next time.